Hello YouTube, Infinite Magicraid community, Gandalf here. We have a brand new hero, Frank, that has just joined us from the Nameless Brotherhood. He has a kit that focuses and revolves around Horrify. He's truly a horror to deal with for your opponent, or is he horrible to put on your team? We will find out in this video. Alright, welcome back. I want to take a quick 30 seconds to highlight the event we have on right now, Lucky Firecrackers. Make sure that if you do plan to go for the limited hero in this chest, that you do buy these. Otherwise, you will have to end up spending extra. You will be able to get 28 of these, which is a lot. And as you go through these, what I will recommend is if you do happen to have as soon as you see one of these special ones, you want to try to use it to hit the special one to get some extra clears out of that. And on average, I think, out of 14, I got 24 on both accounts. So progress wise, it's about a 1 to 1.5 ratio or a little bit more than that in terms of progressing. So you should be fine within $100. Combat Pass, you still have 7 more days. You should be able to finish it, and the deal is really good there. And of course, today's the last day for the Dazzling Mall, which has a nice pet in it if you want to pick one up. Do use AppToIDE if you are spending, as it helps you by removing the taxes, for whatever reason. Now, if you are spending, do use AppToIDE. I have guides on it, and it will help you save the taxes and help you earn credit that you can be using towards future purchases. All right, let's take a look at Frank's skills. I have him on exclusive 0, and on exclusive 0, his last skill really is a skill. Once it goes to exclusive 3, it becomes a passive. Now, he will enter sniper mode for just 1 turn, get all of allies crit damage up, which is nice. Then he starts pursuing enemies pursuing the boss whenever one of your allies take turn. But this only works for 1 round. Once you go to exclusive 3, basically he's kind of like a Lysander but for direct damage. Now, I believe this number is wrong. It's 35%. I think it's 35% chance to trigger Horrify. So when enemy turns, there is I think a 35% chance to inflict Horrify, right? Yeah, 35. This is a fixed percent chance to trigger. So effective hit doesn't impact this chance here. And if you manage to land the Horrify, you will be able to then pursue the attack onto the enemy once. Now, this is only for 1 turn before exclusive 3. At exclusive 3, this happens consistently across the board. Now, when it comes to his passive, beginning of the wave, he can land onto the enemy, and then once, if an enemy has a Horrify on it, and they get an attribute buff, so that's not like shields or anything like that. But when it comes to like attack up, skill damage up, there's a 50% chance of blocking it. Tactical shooting is a very big hit. It goes up to 900% attack multiplier. So we're seeing like very solid multipliers on these. But key thing here is it has severe wound and weakness. And the basic attack has tenacity down to reduce the... so it increases the critical damage done to the enemy essentially, right? By removing part of their tenacity away. Furthermore, we have the gunpowder peril, which is kind of stacked up consistently across the board. Every time you are doing a basic attack, you're getting gunpowder perils. At exclusive 0, it goes up to 45% damage. At exclusive 1, this goes up to 67.5% for targets with Horrify. And then exclusive 3, when it comes to fighting bosses, all of the damages start going up. And of course, this fixed percent chance of Horrifying to 70% is also a huge boost to his overall damage and kit as a whole in PvP as well. So that is kind of Frank in a nutshell. But if we actually do the math, right? If we do the math here, this means every single game turn you're taking, Frank is essentially, with the exception of his own turn, right? So that means he doesn't have to build with a lot of speed because he can just be there with a lot of attack, like Lysander, and he has like essentially a 800% multiplier on his basic attack against bosses. That is a lot. That is almost Lance level, but now you can factor in crit and crit damage onto it. Plus, you can probably use Devouring Set, definitely makes sense, increasing both the skill damage here and the basic attack damage. You should be using direct damage for blessings because it will then impact all of it instead of using things like basic attack. So scale off of direct damage the most, and this becomes a very solid direct damage dealer. I theorize, right, because it's really hard to showcase this because you can't set up bosses on the enemy team, and I can't even make it pursue them even if I've set up 5 allies, because normally in a PvP situation, you see, he's triggering on the enemy's turn. Now, I'm just going to quickly put him onto exclusive 3 so that you can see the effect of exclusive 3. Now, all of a sudden, the third skill is now a passive, right? And basically, you can see that he's essentially always in sniper mode, right? He's sniping everybody who's taking a turn, and when they get horrified, they will get sniped, right? So everybody who gets a horrify from this will be sniped. And because they all have horrify on them, it does a lot of extra damage on them as well. So the multiplier is very notable for whenever enemies taking turns. And this also synergizes really well at exclusive 3, allowing him to quickly stack up to 30 stacks for his very first basic attack. So multiplier wise, like I said, 800%, very notable, and you know everything is purely multiplicative because let me just quickly adjust this attribute slightly just so he has a 100% crit rate, so it's easy to see this. But essentially, right, if we take a look at, well, right now nobody has Horrify on it, but once they have Horrify, they take additional damage. Okay, now they have Horrify. Okay, so take a look at this particular hero, right? When we do the hit, it's going to be 339k. The basic attack on this target is going to be around the same. Next turn, when we go back around it, we'll do one basic attack onto it. Okay, he's about to move. And you see 132. Now, the damage is ramping up very quickly, but it should be about a third once you're fully at stack, and I already checked that. So that means we know the third exclusive here. This is going to apply to not only the basic attack, but also this big tactical shot as well. All right, so that kind of explains all the damage. Let's take a moment to see how these teams actually behave in PvP. So give me a moment to set it all up. All right, let's quickly take a look at the stats. This is for Murom and Giselle. Now these are all my actual stats. However, they don't have aura or echoes on them. And Beatrix and then Erito. Over here, what we have done is we have replaced Frank with the stats kind of my Jingle Belle here, 100 crit, 450. Sorry, it has the passive already, but it's 400 crit and 65k attack. Just pretending if I move the Jingle Belle gear over, and let's see how things perform. Now, immediately we see that the Horrify got thrown onto Beatrix, so that means the enemy cannot start with a Beatrix hit. The two Giselles are really going at it for each other, but once Beatrix get out of it, I think one of the drawbacks we immediately see with Frank is if Frank gets CC'd, this makes it really problematic for Frank to be doing damage because he won't be sniping on every single one of the enemy's turns if he is CC'd. And if he's CC'd, like for example by Giselle here again, he will not be able to be applying Horrify onto the enemy. And Giselle in this situation without having a panda on the team is just really, really annoying to deal with. It's almost like and I've shown this in many, and I've done this in many tests. While the opposite side we probably see the most frequent of. On my side, if I actually putting a panda, it kind of helps mitigate some of these issues. All right, so we kind of see we already lost here a little bit. Probably not the best showcase you can see for Frank. The amount of damage Frank did here. Again, Giselle completely dominated. Airto never got a chance to pop off. But the damage, Frank did some damage. Let's quickly try again. And just from a lineup perspective, let's put the enemy. Let's take away the Beatrix. And let's put in, say, something, I don't know. Something a little bit more with a bit of a shield. And what do we see when this happens? Now immediately on my side, I guess, the benefit of Frank is going to be reducing the damage the enemy does, but the enemy will have a little bit more shield and survivability from that perspective. The thing with Frank, though, it's kind of also the same thing with Lance, right? Is the damage is not going to be scaling up. It doesn't ramp up so much as to, the basic attack is only at 7 stacks right now. Let's see if in this battle Frank can actually stack up to the full 30 and kind of check out what the damage is going to be once it reaches that kind of a level. Now, of course, from a setup perspective, right, we do see that it's almost like the team is made up of all the latest heroes. If you think about the latest limited heroes that we have gotten added to the game, right? It's like Giselle, Murong, Airto. Before Airto, we had Beatrix, and before Beatrix, we had Wukong. So yeah, pretty much your latest 5 limited hero almost kind of de facto becomes the strongest team. Okay, so Frank is at 17 stacks now. We do see the effect of weakness on the enemy where the shields are kind of just, even though you have Nordak and Wukong having really big shields, it's not really making that big of a difference. I think CCs again is going to be a great way to counter Frank. So if you use Frank, you might want to find ways to either cleanse your team or find a way to protect him or transfer some of his debuffs away. I do feel like Frank does have a role to play in the meta a little bit. I mean, immediately what we start to see is, with the enemy all being horrified across the board, they start to, not cast some of their skills. And there is a little bit of randomness to it. I mean, if they miss a couple of skills that are critical and lose their CC, this creates the opening that we're looking for. You see right there, the opening was kind of created there. And recognizing, Frank's value in this team kind of outweighs what Nordak could potentially bring to the table, simply because, Giselle, Wukong, Murong, they can all essentially remove buff. Like even Giselle, right? Giselle is not immune to CC, so being able to either CC the enemy Giselle with your own Giselle or having these Horrify landed on Giselle, all of it translates into a much more, it creates opening, right? Because one of the thing here right now is when we see these super tanky teams and when everybody has their cooldowns, it's hard to find those openings to break through. But with Frank, if the enemy is somewhat horrified, they could lose one of their key cooldowns, right? And it gets put into reset, and they're not able to combo or cycle through as effectively. So I think we're almost there in terms of creating that key opening that we're looking for. Frank is at 30 stacks, and he's definitely hitting harder, right? Each of these snipes are hitting about 130k now, which is very notable. But that also means like one of his own snipe is going to hit a lot harder as well. Okay, so you saw that snipe there? That was like 200k. I think that was a proactive snipe. But yeah, even in this situation though, the enemy is kind of somewhat holding on. So Frank, looking at his strength right now, let's just quickly take a look at battle report and just see how much damage Frank has kind of dished out so far. Frank has been sort of almost keeping up. Not quite there yet because, again, his damage is based on how often his allies take turns, right? So if your team is relatively fast, Frank is going to do more damage, and everybody's about the same speed right now. But in the grand scheme of things, I think Frank might be able to make a difference, especially for the fourth or fifth team in there. We clearly see that he's not going to be as important as some other heroes maybe when it comes to classic arena, where you are forced to use pretty much all the very best heroes in the game right now. All right. Hopefully with all that information, you can make an informed decision. What I'll say is, for majority of the players, right, if you're missing a direct damage dealer and you don't want to use Dharma, or you never will get Jingle Belle, I honestly believe Frank is a good option. Now, knowing also next week we are likely to see the new faction banner, you could technically wait for this decision until next week, right? See what's on the new faction banner before you decide to see if you want to pull for Frank or not. But for those of you who don't find Frank impressive, today's kind of the last day to go for Giselle before she comes back maybe a month in maybe like $150 or $160 box. And then we will probably see her in boxes after Christmas, where the new limited hero for Christmas comes out. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and you can see how Giselle kind of made things really difficult to kill. And of course, additional 30% is coming from Mr. Frank right there. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Gandalf out.